The fact that Hideo Kojima and Guillermo del Toro's take on Silent Hill will never happen always makes me sad. Its interactive teaser, PT, is still one of the best horror games of all time in its own right, and that was just a demo. What fourth wall breaking Kojima and horror master del Toro could have done with it remains one of game's greatest unanswered questions. But there are clear links between Kojima's Death Stranding and his abandoned Silent Hills project. Could all these connections add up to one of the greatest hoodwinks in video game history, or is it all in our heads? This is Death Stranding, the PT Conspiracy. There are two main trails of thought here. Poke around enough Reddit threads and YouTube videos and there's numerous connections and coincidences that seem to join these two games together, not to mention strange tweets and discrepancies in the timeline of both games' development that are, well, odd. The more conservative among you will fall into the first camp, which is, Death Stranding is using some of Silent Hill's leftover ideas and themes. This is the more obvious and perhaps the most likely of the two, and points to the fact that Kojima's showmanship as a master manipulator means he's deliberately sowing these strands. Yeah, strands like in Death Stranding, I get it. As I was saying, this could be as simple as Kojima showing these strands between the two games to whip up gossip and attention. The other side is a little more out there. Look hard enough and you'll find people make concerted attempts to argue that Death Stranding is Silent Hills, and Kojima has orchestrated everything from faking his own firing onwards to create the mother of all surprises. Let's not forget the Moby Dick whacking Mogren shenanigans of Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain's initial reveal. Here, Kojima created a fictitious studio and developer to pretend it wasn't a Metal Gear game. Kojima also memorably hid the fact that Raiden was the star of Metal Gear Solid 2 until it was out, infuriating a fanbase waiting for their original hero to return. The man is capable of anything, and the fact remains that there are a lot of weird connections. The kind that make you want to join pictures on a notice board together with pins and bits of string. Some are obvious, some are suspicious, and some are just too... wait, what? There are some big easy things right up front. Both games feature prominent babies, for example, but perhaps one of the biggest matchups can be found in this concept trailer for Silent Hills that Kojima revealed at the Tokyo Game Show in 2014. The monster we catch a brief glimpse of here was never seen in the PT demo, but was later found in the game files by data miners as a finished model. Switch over to the first ever E3 2016 Death Stranding reveal and the very first thing we see here are monster hands. Whether it's a reused physical design or concept, the fact that both games have a central character living in fear of giant fingers is kind of a huh moment. That ramps up when you take a look at some of the pictures you can find on the wall in PT. While exploring the hallways of the, still terrifying by the way, PT demo, you come across a number of paintings which seem to feature locations from the Death Stranding trailers. There's this painting you see almost immediately in the PT hallway, which seems to match with this area from Death Stranding's 2018 E3 trailer. This picture in PT also seems to look a lot like this location from the same trailer. And this painting especially seems to match exactly a location in the 2018 E3 trailer for Death Stranding. The similarities are strong, but for good measure there's this painting as well that looks exactly like the black Icelandic beaches Norman Reedus wakes up on in the original Death Stranding reveal. Where things start to blur is that Kojima was location scouting in Iceland way back in 2014, while he was still at Konami and working on Silent Hills. Death Stranding wouldn't be announced for another couple of years, but while on this trip he tweeted this. That town in Garda is Iceland, and I see the town is a misphrased Silent Hill 2 quote.
I see that town. Silent Hill.
He also tweeted this picture of Moss back in 2014 that, at the time, didn't really mean that much. However, 4 years later he posted this as a teaser for an upcoming 2018 E3 Death Stranding reveal, and people noticed. Whatever Kojima was doing in Iceland in 2014, 1 year before he left Konami and nearly 2 years before he started work on Death Stranding, it's clear something carried over. However, there's one more picture in PT which could suggest a stronger connection. Not only is it placed on the first wall that faces the player so it's impossible to miss, it's the only painting to have been treated. It's upside down and in negative. If you take this picture, flip it over and reverse the colour, you get this. While it's a dead ringer for the old Chusetsu Tunnel in Fukuoka, one of Japan's most famous haunted locations and a good reference for a horror game, there's a pretty hard to miss bridge in the 2016 Death Stranding Game Awards trailer. In of itself, that's not really a big deal. A bridge is a bridge. That is until you catch the J in the centre brick as the camera pans up. That J is significant, to the PT conspiracy at least, because there's a J in PT. At certain points, the game will intentionally crash and return you to the title screen. One of the error messages can contain a message from a J. And that's not all. There are some hidden messages that can play, like this backwards audio that when corrected says,
"I walked till I stood one pace before Jack."
Even the programming of PT has a Jack stage referenced to in its lines of code. Kojima does love to play with people though, so it's not that hard to believe that he's seeding old PT things into Death Stranding after the fact just to drive conspiracy fans nuts. But there are weird thematic links too. We all know PT has a talking bloodstained paper bag, which depending on who you ask contains either a head or the removed genitals of the demo's main character, but that's a long story for another video. At one point the bag states, "I walked, I could do nothing but walk, and then I saw me walking in front of myself."
Walking in front of myself. But it wasn't really me. Watch out. The gap in the door. It's a separate reality. The only me is me. Are you sure the only you is you?
This is an interesting quote given that Norman Reedus' Death Stranding character Sam's entire purpose is to walk. He's a delivery man. Plus there's all that talk of separate realities, seeing yourself and being unsure if you are the only you. A Death Stranding fundamental seems to revolve around at least 3 other realities: the main world, another plane full of shadowy monsters trying to push through, and some sort of watery purgatory you visit when you die. Except you don't actually die, you come back. And are you still the only you if you return from the dead? There are even some odd links between PT and Death Stranding when you look at Low Roar, the band who performs the "I'll Keep Coming" song from the Death Stranding trailers. Kojima allegedly discovered them in 2014, again while he was meant to be working on Silent Hills, so it's probably just coincidence that the album they released that year fits the Death Stranding artwork 2 years later. It's a connection the band itself has even tweeted out while denying there's any intention. Something that's less hard to brush away is the 2017 music video for Low Roar's Give Me an Answer, where director Dylan Marco Bell specifically says it would be fun to create a world where certain fans could physically enter the game Death Stranding before it came out. That's all well and good until the entire video's concept hinges on people apparently entering Death Stranding via a PT-esque bathroom, where a machine trailing numerous strand-like wires makes them disappear, apparently in rapture, as an oily substance coats their bodies. The one person left behind after drawing a short straw seems upset not to get their chance until they open the bathroom door and this happens. What's interesting is that when talking about creating a world where the fans could enter Death Stranding, Bell states that this opened the door to questions that created the narrative you see in the video. What's the car that takes you there? Who's driving? What's the hotel number? What does a machine and the transfer process look like? What happens if a contestant doesn't wait their turn? The implication being that Bell seems to know how people enter Death Stranding's world, and a bathroom seems almost too much of a coincidence if he does. Given all of this, there's no denying that there are a lot of weird similarities between Death Stranding and PT or Silent Hills. Most of this could be down to pareidolia, the name for the phenomena where the human brain recognises patterns in otherwise random things. Seeing Jesus' face in a slice of toast is a usual example. For example, is it coincidence that there's one solitary incongruous spiderweb in PT that looks similar to the Bridges logo in Death Stranding? Does the fact that William Blake, who Kojima quotes at the start of a Death Stranding trailer, has a painting called Good and Evil Angels Struggling for the Possession of a Child mean anything? Are they fighting over a baby on a black beach, or do I just want to see that? We may never actually know if any of these connections and strands between the two games actually mean anything, and we certainly won't know a thing until Death Stranding arrives, reportedly next year. Whatever happens, whether it's real, imagined or manipulated, it's still a fun game to play ahead of the main event and makes the world a far more interesting place for it. And let's remember the most important message from PT. This game is a teaser, it has no direct relation to the main title.